Howdy peeps, we're doing well. I figured it's time for another video, since why not go on a roll with them, right? Actually, before I get started, I just need to check, see if there's any comments on the last one. Sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't. Looks like no, I haven't. Alright, fair enough. One of the things that I do obviously talk about quite a lot is the friendships that we have with people, or relationships, not necessarily intimate. But the reason I'm so passionate about things being that, relationships being right, friendships that are good for you and also good for me for the most part, is because if there's one thing I've noticed, is a lot of people do tend to give others a pass for their bullshit behaviour, which, it just enables further problems down the line, doesn't it? Like, especially if you've got a scenario where you got someone that is what is referred to as toxic. Even that word started to lose its meaning, where everyone just uses the word toxic. It's just like, I don't think a lot of the time they really get the sort of gist of it, the damage that these people do, and the little world that they live in, which never seems to be affected by their fuckery, and it always seems to be pardon me, it always seems to be everyone else. Now look, a lot of people could sort of point the finger at me because I talk about it and be like, oh well, you're always talking about these types of people, and it's like the same thing that gets brought up with in terms of romantic relationships, where they, a lot of the time women say, well, you're the common denominator of, your girlfriend's being bad for you, sort of thing. You made the choice, and to a degree they are right, because a lot of the time, like I said, it's that projected fantasy of who you want them to be rather than who they actually are and what they actually behave like when you're not with them. This is something that I sort of discovered later on, after being in a relationship with someone that was, as far as I'm concerned, toxic. Whereas they had gone behind my back to their friends and said, oh, well, this, that and the third. And it was all lies. But they're going to take their word over mine because in that sense, I was a newcomer. And the common denominator there was all of her exes were bad. All of her exes were the problem. And this can be somewhat of a giveaway as well, especially on like social media, in terms of romantic relationships, where when in the instance of a toxic female starts dating a new guy, you'll notice that they don't get as many likes, because a lot of the people that are friends with that individual, a lot of the time they've seen it for what it is, and it's just, I don't know whether they see it as a case of, well, you just make bad choices, or really are all your exes toxic, or is it you that's the common denominator, like as in is it the woman that's the common denominator? But nonetheless, these people will still keep them as friends, won't necessarily jump on the bandwagon. But the fact that they're kept as friends, that they keep these people as friends, also causes a problem, because it just sort of validates further. One of the things that does get said, or has been said to me by an ex, was, oh no, I'm okay, you can ask all of my friends. So instantly, it's like, I'd rather, and I'd like to think that my friends would actually say this about me, I would rather they say, he's alright, but he can be a prick from time to time. Because it's true, right? Sometimes I can get a bee in my bonnet about something, like anyone else. And I can go into one about it. But still, I'd like to think that my friends would be like, no, generally speaking, he is okay. And they know that I don't put on some sort of a facade. I don't pretend to be different people, like I was explaining in the other video, with different social groups. It's like, no, it's the same person, it's the same me. What you see is what you get, and you don't have to like it. You know, you don't have to like me. And it's just the way that it is, you know. But when it comes to these toxic women, they do rely a great deal. In fact, toxic people in general, they do rely a great deal on others' opinion about them. And then, of course, depending on sort of the scale of, well, how perhaps histrionic they are, when you call them out on their fuckery, the reaction can be quite mind-boggling. You know, they can, you know, I've used the expression narcissistic rage, where you point a flaw out within them or their personality, or you catch them in a lie, and then they'll go batshit crazy at you rather than explaining what they meant, or putting their hands up. Never expect this one. Putting their hands up and admitting to fault, right? They won't do it, right? It's a lot of times, it's always everyone else, and everyone else is the problem, and that's just the way it is. But like I say, a lot of these women, they rely on people like that. You know, they rely on people not saying anything, perhaps through fear that, you know, the fear of consequences of they get their name dragged through the mud as a result of standing up against them, you know, giving them some sort of confrontation. And a lot of people won't argue with people like that. You know, I mean, personally, it does get to the point where it's like you're not even arguing with common sense anymore, right? That's what is generally what it sort of comes down to. But yeah, it sort of bothers me, and I get it that there's nothing I can do about it, because at the end of the day, it's not about me telling people how to live their lives. I can merely just give advice on what you can do to have a sort of happier life, because a lot of the time, you know, when it comes down to these individuals, that they will single someone out that they don't like. You know, I've sort of, like I was explaining in the other video about the groups of friends, whereas I don't know, it's a case of they pick a target. I don't know whether it's as straightforward as that, or whether it's just something that they build up a resentment towards the other person over time for whatever reason. Maybe they're more popular, or maybe the group like them better for some reason. It could be that, I'm not sure. But when they do pick that target, you know, the way they sort of go about it is the usual sort of thing, that they'll try and alienate them from the group in one way or another, and then badmouth them. And again, look, you could argue with me saying what I said in the last video about, you know, like me walking away from a whole group of friends for the sake of one individual. It's like, well, if you're having to question the word of someone that is your friend and has been your friend for many years over someone that you don't really know deep down, someone that you don't know them. You might know them, but you don't know them. This is what I was trying to get across in the other video. But that's just it, because you don't know them. And in the meanwhile, potentially you can end up losing someone that is a good friend, does have your best interest at heart, and at the end of the day would rather see you in a good place, surrounded by good people, rather than having that one toxic individual, where it's a thing, that took a dislike to one of the others in the group for no particular reason. That it just doesn't make sense to me why people would, but they do. You know, I often say that people fucking are stupid for the most part. That's why I resent humans. It sounds a bit strong, but it's just sort of like, sometimes at the level of, like, maybe it's not stupidity, maybe it is ignorance, you know, to not know any better. Maybe it is that. But still, you know, I'd expect that from young teenagers that don't know any better. I wouldn't expect it from fully grown adults. But, you know, like I say, it is one of them scenarios, and it's a shame, because a lot of the time you get good people ousted from groups on the basis that Well, for starters, there was a disagreement or whatever. Just one person didn't like the other, and there's only so much grinning and bearing people can do a lot of the time. I won't tolerate it for long. Once I suss out that someone is bad or bad for a social group of friends, I will point this out. And it's not about being a dick about it. It's just about pointing out the obvious. But if people still want to, it's not a case of policing who your friends are. It's like you got to make that decision for you. All I'm trying to reiterate is like, make sure you choose the right people, because a lot of the time, as the saying goes, good people are hard to find. There's a reason for that, right? It's because a lot of the time the so-called toxic ones, for the sake of their own personal gratification perhaps, and for the sake of making themselves feel better, or I've even seen it where people want to be kind of like in charge of the group and stuff. They want to be the one, but they don't want they want all the they want all the power and all the authority, but they don't want any of the responsibility when things go wrong. They don't want that part of it. So they tend to be quite, in that sense, passive aggressive, which, as far as I'm concerned, isn't good for any group of friends. But that is why I'm just so passionate about things like this. It's like, no, there's people out there and they're just putting up with utter bullshit from others because, I don't know, maybe they lack the testicular fortitude to say something about it. They lack the balls, they lack the courage, maybe. But in lacking these two things, which the things that I value in friendships, it's like, no, there's been one of my friends, and I don't know if he's still a friend or not, to be honest. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I'd have fallen out, funnily enough, over the topic of feminism. I'd have fallen out with his missus. So, he's not spoken to me a great deal since. But the same, he gets on with his life. He's got his group of friends and everything. And I'll be honest, I'm very different to them. I'm very different. I'm a different mindset politically. I'm a different mindset in how I live my life. And that's it's just differences. But I accept that. As far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't change the friendship. Even the fact that I'd have fallen out with his missus over something that was posted on the internet years ago, that kind of bothers me. But again, with respect, where are his balls going to be? In her purse. He's only going to be allowed to bark when she says so, which is something that I mean, considering this guy was like really opinionated, really clever, and if he had if he knew something was wrong or someone was being wronged, he was always the type to say something. But that all changed when he got with his missus. And they say people don't change. It's like, yeah, all right. And I'm not saying that to sort of like put the guy down. I'm just saying this is what happens sometimes in relationships. Whereas, you might be the type of dog that barks where you need to then you have to bark to the tune that your girlfriend tells you. Otherwise, you're the bad guy. And if there's kids involved, well, it could go very wrong very quickly. Not saying that's what would happen to him, but still, it was one of those scenarios where it really made me sort of wonder, like, what happened to you? You this guy, and this is, I've known him for like 30 years easily, and it's just that thing of like, the submission to another. And I'm not saying his missus is toxic either. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying more about control and demand. You could define that as toxic, controlling. If you talk to Red Pill Dave again, and we're getting divorced or something. I don't think she'd say that. I wouldn't put it past her, but I don't think she'd say that. But you know, that's where it's at. You know, like people change for the sake of keeping the peace, but then they're not being loyal to themselves and their morals and their ethics and their beliefs, which I think is a sad state in today's day and age, especially now where, you know, we've seen division over the last sort of 18 months, nearly a year now. We've seen a great deal of division within society for a couple of different reasons. And, you know, again, it's like sometimes it becomes like a mob-like mentality, you know, with torches and pitchforks and all that sort of thing. Maybe not as extreme, but, you know what I'm getting at. But it's always been down to, it's like, you know, having your actual friends there and them actually being quality friends rather than, like I said, having 500 friends and maybe 10% of that, so what, maybe 50? It's probably closer to 5, right? Out of 500 friends, you've probably got 5 that have actually got your back 100%. The rest will talk about it, but when it comes down to it, it's like, oh, I'm busy, oh, I can't do it. Yeah, all right. But again, there is sort of different reasonings for that as well a lot of the time. But anyway, rabbit it on enough yet again, so I'll upload this one, and I guess I might carry on creating content and see how it goes, see if the video views picks up any. I've considered doing this as a more often, making videos more often, but like I said, I don't want to get caught up in my own little echo chamber. So anyway, thoughts, comments and opinions on this one, feel free to jot them down as always. Until the next one, stay cool, stay free, peace out.